Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Together Live. I'm Marc Sievers, and tonight we are hosting together a virtual cooking class. So I'm just going to wait a few seconds before we kind of dive in, just to let everybody get caught up that is just logging on. It's Saturday, the day before Easter, so I hope you guys are having a great weekend so far. I have an Easter basket ready for tomorrow. I'm going to make a French tart and I think some roasted carrots, and maybe drizzle those with a little bit of creme fraiche and some toasted pistachios. So that's kind of our menu for tomorrow. But let's talk about tonight's cooking class. In honor of Schitt's Creek just ending, tonight we're going to make Dutch bebes. So if you guys watch Schitt's Creek, you know Moira Rose always uses the word bebe instead of baby. So tonight we're making Dutch bebes, which really is just a Dutch baby. It's like a puffy, delicious pancake. However, mine are a little bit different. I know lately, because we're all kind of sheltering in place and we're all doing a lot of cooking, I see everybody is cooking so much. I'm so happy to see a resurgence of cooking and learning how to cook in your own kitchen. It's very exciting. But I wanted to make individual ones tonight because I think they're a little bit more elegant. They're, I think, easier to actually serve than a big Dutch bebe in a cast iron skillet. I'm going to laugh every time I say that. But I think making them in these little individual gratin dishes, I just think kind of elevates this really earthy kind of puffy pancake. And these two recipes tonight, so I left you instructions on my Together Live page at marksievers.com to kind of choose your focus. We're going to either make a sweet one or a savory one. I'm going to make both because I don't know which one you are making at home. But both of the recipes come out of my cookbook, Table for Two. And let's see, Table for Two is here. So Table for Two came out in 2016. And it really was kind of my answer to cooking for Ryan and I, and for just two people. I think there were a lot of books out there that are, you know, aphrodisiac cooking for two and cooking for couples, and Ryan's laughing at that. But I always think, well, what about if I just want to cook for, like, my best friend, or if Ryan wants to cook for his brother, or if I want to cook for my godmother? I don't necessarily want to make recipes that are coming from a cookbook aphrodisiac for two. So I wrote Table for Two because this is all about cooking and entertaining for you and your plus one. So it can be anybody, just another person, your friend, your sister, your brother, your mother, your colleague, whatever the case may be. So both of the recipes tonight are coming out of this cookbook. It's currently on sale at marksievers.com. And for all orders of cookbooks through my website, you are going to get a special little inclusion as well. So more about that later. But there's something really wonderful about these because a traditional Dutch baby pancake, I think, has a very thin kind of bottom and nice, beautiful puffy sides. And I wanted something a little bit more substantial. So in the book, I talk about these as kind of like Dutch flans because they have like that beautiful set custardy base in the bottom of the gratin dish, like a flan does, and then those gorgeous puffy sides like a Dutch baby. So, Dutch bebe, sorry. I'm going to forget. Did anybody watch the Schitt's Creek season finale? Let me know in the comments because I did, and so did Ryan. But they're really simple to make, and they really just take just a handful of ingredients. So I'm going to walk you through everything that I have for both the sweet and the savory version. So let's start in the kitchen, and let me give you a little overhead view of what I have. We're not going to start cooking yet. I'm just going to get everybody kind of up to date. So if you're making the savory potato and roasted red pepper, no, roasted red pepper, the crispy potato and scallion one, you're gonna have one large Yukon Gold potato. I didn't even peel it. I just half-inch diced it. And I have 2 cloves of finely minced garlic, 1 large shallot that's finely minced, and then 3 tablespoons of olive oil and 1 tablespoon of butter. And then I also have some freshly shredded pepper jack cheese and some green onions, or scallions. So that's for the savory version. If you're going to do the sweet version, you're going to need some maple syrup and some bananas. So let's go back out onto the island and I'll show you the rest. So the batters for the Dutch bébés are really, really similar. Each one has pretty much the same base, but I'm going to tweak the flavorings to make one more on the sweeter side and one more on the savory side. So I want you to preheat your oven to 425 degrees. That's the very first thing I want you to do. And I want you to take your sheet pan and your gratin dishes, and I have 4, but this recipe makes 2, but I'm going to make 2 sweet and 2 savory. So I'm going to put my gratin dishes right onto my half sheet pan, and I'm going to put in a tablespoon of butter into each one. It can be soft butter, it does not matter. So just like this. And perfect. Why is butter so good? So I'm going to put that aside for just a second, and I want to get the batters ready. So let's start with the savory batter. So for the savory batter, we're going to use our 3 extra large eggs, and I just have them in a little measuring cup here and a whisk. And then to that, I'm going to add some pepper, about a quarter of a teaspoon of freshly cracked black pepper. And I'm going to add about a quarter teaspoon of salt. Salt is important because it helps bring all the other flavors out. I'm going to put in 3/4 of a cup of milk. This is just whole milk. If I'm going too fast, let me know and I will slow down. And then I have some fresh thyme leaves. So let me give you a little overhead view of the thyme. So thyme is this beautiful, really fragrant, gorgeous herb that I use quite often in both sweet and savory cooking. And it can be a little confusing how you're going to strip these little leaves off of their stems. I'm not going to sit here and pick off each one. That would drive me absolutely mad. So instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold the stem of thyme at the top, and I'm going to run my fingers backwards against the leaves, and then they pop right off, just like that. I'll do another one for you. We need about 3/4 of a teaspoon of fresh thyme leaves, just like that. So I put those right in, and we need some, give this maybe a little whisk here. Perfect. So now we're going to put in our flour. So we need 3/4 of a cup of flour. So I have a 1/4 cup measure. And the easiest way to get the flour measured, my grandmother used to take flour with a spoon, lay it onto parchment paper, and I'm sorry, she used to take the flour, put it into one of those sieves, the handheld sieves, and then sift it onto parchment paper and then scoop the flour into the cup. All you have to do is use your cup, lighten the flour a little bit so it's not so heavy, just like this, and then get a big scoop of flour and then run your finger straight across and clear it off. And that's a perfectly measured 1/4 cup of flour. And we need another 1/2 cup of flour. And I'm just going to do the exact same thing. So if you guys are cooking along, perfect. Okay. So now I'm just going to whisk this up until it's nice and smooth. See, it's not so hard. I think when you look at photos and images of Dutch babies on the internet or on social media, I think it can be a little confusing. They look complicated because they're so beautiful. They have those gorgeous puffy sides and they're nice and crisp, but they're really not complicated at all. So you want to whisk this till it's really, really smooth. And you'll be able to kind of feel if there's any lumps of flour in there. You can't really over whisk this. So, and remember, if you've watched other videos of mine, anytime I use eggs, I always tell you, you can tell if the eggs are well beaten when you run your whisk up along right through the middle of the eggs. And if there's no resistance, that means that the egg whites and the egg yolks are perfectly beaten and well incorporated. So I've seen some recipes that use blenders and for the batter. I just don't find it that you have to pull out really any specialty kitchen equipment for this. So for my recipe at least, can't speak to others. Okay, so that looks nice and mixed. So if you're making the savory one, hold off a minute and let me get the sweet one done. So if you're making the sweet batter, we start with this exact same amount of eggs, 3 extra large eggs, and 3/4 of a cup of milk. And then where we put thyme in, I'm going to actually put some honey. So we need 2 teaspoons of honey. That's going to give it a little sweetness. And some vanilla. We want a little bit of vanilla, about 1/2 teaspoon. So see that really the measurements for the main batter are the same. We're just changing on the flavorings. We still need a little bit of salt, about 1/4 teaspoon of salt. And same amount of flour, 3/4 of a cup. So see, they're really simple to make. And what I love about this is that they're such a great versatile recipe to kind of have in your back pocket for entertaining, because you can serve them for breakfast, you can serve them for brunch with a petite salad inside, for dinner, you can serve them for dessert with all kinds of berries and fruit. They're really just a wonderfully versatile recipe. Okay, so we have our 3/4 of a cup of flour, and I'm just going to mix this around. You'll be able to look at your batter to see if there's lumps in it. And I just kind of run my whisk around. But you want to whisk it till it's nice and smooth. Okay. So. Perfect. Nice and smooth. Smells delicious too. They both smell really good. I like that they're both really, really different, but they're really the same thing, kind of. You know, the same batter. So just different flavors. So let's go take our sheet pan with our gratin dishes that have a tablespoon of butter, and my oven is preheated to 425 degrees. So I'm going to put these in. Let's go. I want you to put them in the oven for about 3 minutes. And that will be just enough time. Okay, set our timer for 3 minutes. And what that's going to do is allow that butter to get nice and melted, nice and hot. The gratin dishes will get hot, so that as soon as we pour in the batter, they'll instantly start cooking, and then we'll throw them back into the oven. Well, we'll place them gently back into the oven. So let's come back out here. So I'm going to clean this up a little bit, and I want to know if you guys have any questions so far. And I'm just going to keep on whisking these. No questions. Okay. Hi, Lydia Yang. Hello, Miss Sievers. That's my mother-in-law.
Unicorn Girl.
Unicorn Girl?
Says she's very excited.
Oh, good. Is anybody cooking along? I'm curious. This is nice and smooth. These are both really beautiful batters. So let's go back into the kitchen. I'll take my batters with me, and we'll kind of get started on the potatoes. So if you're making the sweet version of our Dutch bebe, hold off a second, and we'll pour the batter in together. If you're making the savory version, I want you to take your 10-inch skillet, right? My most used size ever. This is just a stainless steel. There's no coating. There's no special. It's just a great all-purpose 10-inch skillet. So I'm going to put it over medium heat. And I want that to get nice and warm. And I also have another little bowl. I want you to get a little bowl or another small plate and put that to the side. So my timer says we have about 40 seconds left before our batter is ready. What's the question?
On the sweet, would you run through the measurements again?
Sure. The sweet batter is 3/4 of a cup of milk, 3/4 of a cup of flour, 2 teaspoons of honey, 1/2 teaspoon of vanilla, 1/4 teaspoon of salt, and I think that's it. Let me check my notes. And 3 extra large eggs. There you go. Pretty easy, right?
Another question is,
Another question?
how far ahead can you make the batter before you prepare the pancakes?
So I don't make the batter too far ahead because it's so simple. I would suggest not making it any more than 15 minutes ahead of time. But you know, it's such a simple batter. You can have everything pre-measured and just pour it all in. Okay, so the timer went off. So if you're cooking along, let's take out the sheet pan with your gratin dishes and the melted butter. Oh, this is nice and hot. I'm gonna put it right here. Whoa. Excellent. Look at that. So you're gonna basically divide the batter. Here's the sweet batter. I'm gonna give it one last whisk, and I'm gonna pour about a cup into each one, right in the center. So there's the sweet batter. Nice and divided. And then the savory batter, which has the thyme in it. My gratin dishes, these are between 6 and 7 inches in diameter. So look at these. Doesn't that look delicious? And then we want to get these right back into the oven. So I'm going to get my other pot holder because that is quite heavy. Okay, into the oven. Be very careful you don't spill them. Okay. And then set our timer for 15 minutes. Between 14 and 15 minutes. I'm going to set mine for 15. So in the meantime, we have our pan heating up for our potatoes, because we want nice crispy potatoes. And I'm going to add my 3 tablespoons of olive oil and my tablespoon of butter. Of course, I always use unsalted butter. And this is nice and hot. And then my delicious golden Yukon Gold potatoes. I think these have such delicious creamy flavor and texture, and they kind of are buttery. I love them so much. Unicorn Girl's cooking along. This is exciting. Which version, Unicorn Girl, are you making? Sweet or savory? And we're going to add some salt and pepper to this as well. Which one is Unicorn Girl making? Oh, okay. So I'm going to put about half a teaspoon of salt into the potatoes, so give them good flavor. Half a teaspoon of freshly cracked black pepper. And these are going to pretty much cook 8 to 10 minutes while the Dutch bebés are cooking. So I'm just going to give them a little stir here. I've never met a potato I don't like. So now, in the meantime, let's go ahead and get our green onions or our scallions chopped up for the savory version. So I have some gorgeous green onions or scallions, and I always take off, there's a little skin. I hope you guys can see this. A little skin on these, and I tend to remove that fine little skin there. I just think it's a little bit nicer to eat. And then when you're cutting green onions or scallions, you want to remove the root end just like this, and then you can cut them straight across like this, and I'm using the light green and white parts and the darker parts. So I'm using essentially the entire scallion. Or you can cut them at a diagonal. And what I like about cutting these at a diagonal is it makes them look a little bit more elegant, and it's really just all that you do differently is just cut them in a different direction. But I think it instantly makes them feel a little bit more kind of special. So I'm just getting these cut up here. There. I use almost all of the green onion because I think I like the color that the darker part gives, and I like all the texture that kind of comes with it. So oh yeah, look at these potatoes. Ivy's cooking what? The sweet one? Nice. Another question for the savory version.
Swap out the thyme for another herb.
Sure, so the question was, can you swap out the thyme for another herb? So you absolutely can. The only herb that I would be a little leery of is rosemary. Rosemary is really much more stronger, I think, than thyme, and the rosemary leaves aren't as tender. They're a little bit more thick and kind of more substantial. So I probably wouldn't choose rosemary. I would cook the rosemary in with the potatoes versus putting it into the batter to kind of tenderize those a little bit. And I would, but you could absolutely put dill, put basil, fresh parsley. You could do a combination. I mean, you could even do a beautiful one that has thyme and basil and parsley. I mean, you know, once you taste the bases that we're going to create tonight, you can really go, I might want to add a little bit of orange zest into that, or I might want to add a little bit of lemon zest into that, or I don't like pepper jack cheese, you know, I want to use blue cheese. I want to use triple cream. It's just all about having those different options available. So look at these gorgeous potatoes. Yum. So exciting. So now let's get our bananas ready. So bananas are pretty simple. So for this particular recipe, I don't use bananas that are too dark. I kind of like them to have a little bit of dark and discoloration, but not really, really, really brown like I use for, say, banana bread or banana muffins, or I have a new recipe coming out for 1-bowl banana cake. I've never seen Ryan like literally run into the kitchen so quickly when that was baking in the oven, and he was like chomping on the bit of like, when is that ready? I need a bite. It smells amazing. That recipe is coming very soon. So here's a little trick for you too. Because I just cut green onions on this cutting board, I don't have time to wash it. What I like to do is take a little sheet of parchment paper, and I buy parchment paper by the sheet. I get it online. It's the exact size of a half sheet pan, and I just think it's so easy. I'm going to fold this in half, put it right on top of this board that I just sliced the green onions with. I am going to change my knife, and now I can get my bananas all chopped up without having to wash the board in between. You have to be careful when you're using the same board for sweet and savory things, because the flavors do transfer. Doesn't matter, in my opinion, it doesn't matter how much you wash it, how much you scrub it. It never, my bananas and strawberries, I remember when I first started cooking years and years ago, I would go, why do my strawberries taste like onions? And it was because I did not know better and was cutting my strawberries on the same cutting board as my onions. So if you can see this basket right here outside of the kitchen, that basket has sheet pans and cutting boards and all kinds of things. But, you know, for this, I think we're doing just fine with just a piece of parchment paper. So if you...
What is the temp of the oven the second time the batter goes in? Does the temperature of the oven change, or does it stay the same?
The batter, the question was, what is the temperature of the oven when the second time the batter goes in? So every time you open up your oven, your temperature in your oven is going to drop a little bit. So you do sometimes have to adjust your cooking time. But in this case, you're opening it for such a short amount of time that it really doesn't make any, it really shouldn't hurt it. I'm not changing the temperature up and down. I very rarely do that. The only time I really futz with the temperature of anything is when I am on the stove, and if I'm gonna like make French fries or I'm gonna deep fry something, I'll put everything into the hot oil, lower the oil. I'll bring up the temperature to bring the oil back up, and then take it all down. But for the most part, I don't do that unless it's really necessary. Okay, so look at these delicious potatoes. Ryan, give them an overhead of these gorgeous potatoes. Yum! So let's taste them and see how tender they are. I like my potatoes nice and dark because that means the outside are going to be nice and crisp and the insides are going to be nice and creamy. Ooh, this is going to be hot. Uh-huh. Oh. French fries is my ultimate favorite food group and my ultimate favorite food. So anytime there is a crispy potato involved, I am always excited. So I think mine look pretty good. So next I'm gonna add in my garlic and shallots. And these, you wanna cook these about 60 seconds. You don't want the garlic to burn. You don't want the shallots to burn. And I'm going to get a slotted spoon here. Oh, that smells so good. Ryan, can you smell this? Does it smell good?
Just to confirm, the temperature is 425. Correct?
425 is the temperature your oven is preheated to. Yes.
And where online can you buy the parchment paper sheets?
So I buy it from a multiple different places. Just search parchment paper sheets, and you can get it on Amazon. You can get them. Actually, I think mine mostly come from Amazon. I've been ordering the sheets for, I would say, probably 8 years. It's so much easier than wrestling with that roll of parchment paper that is just, to me, a pain. So, okay, so I'm going to take out with my slotted spoon here these delicious potatoes and garlic and shallots. And I'm going to put them, I don't want all this olive oil. We don't want to make the Dutch bebes too oily. You don't have to worry about getting every little fleck of garlic and shallot out of the oil. You just want to make sure you get most of it out. So the question is, where do I buy my French butter and what brand do I recommend? So it all depends. Let me get this onto my sheet pan here. Let's go out into on the kitchen island. We have 3 minutes before our Dutch babies are ready. So, no, it's fine. The question was, where do I find my French butter and what brand do I use? So, my everyday grocery store, I have two. I have what I call big box store, which is like the equivalent of where you can get things like Diet Coke and brand name things. That store, the one that I find most readily available is the Presidente unsalted butter. If you have a Trader Joe's by you, they also sell salted butter from France. That's delicious. And they also sell Kerrygold. Kerrygold is an Irish butter, and that is a delicious butter as well. So kind of depends on where you are able to shop. French butter or Irish butter, they're not the same, but they have delicious flavor, and I always try to use those as much as possible. But, you know, there are times when all I can get is just regular unsalted butter. So I use like Cabot brand for regular unsalted butter. So, something that is readily available in almost every grocery store. I want to try these potatoes just because they're staring me in the face. Potatoes are so good. So let's go look at our Dutch babies in the oven. Don't open the oven. I just want you to put the oven light on and see if your magic is happening. I have magic happening. Aren't they gorgeous? Wait till you guys see these. So exciting. So they have about a minute left. You may have to watch the time. Mine don't look quite ready yet. So I'm going to add another couple of minutes onto the cook time. You want use that reference photo on the Together Live tab on marcsievers.com. Use that reference photo to see that the edges are nice and brown. As soon as those edges are nice and brown, that's when you know they're ready. And you don't need to increase the time by like 5 minutes. I have about 50 seconds left, so I'm just going to bump that up to about 2.5 minutes total. And you're just going up a minute or two. And what that will do is make sure that the sides get nice and puffy. That beautiful bottom kind of flan part is nice and custardy. It's still going to be cooked and set, but it's just going to be a little bit thicker than your average Dutch bebe. Is anyone making potatoes? Did anybody make the potatoes? No one made the potatoes. All from myself. The potatoes are also a great thing. You can make them just like that for breakfast with us on the side of maybe one of your French omelettes that I've taught you how to make in my masterclass from last weekend. Look that up. Those potatoes are delicious if you let them cool and then drizzle them with a little bit of my vinaigrette vat, which is like kind of like a green goddess dressing that wears a French beret. I think it has much better flavor. And it has creme fraiche and mint and all kinds of beautiful green herbs. So that would be a lovely addition for those crispy potatoes. You can also use those crispy potatoes with my Gruyere fondue. Heaven, heaven, heaven. So let's take a peek at our Dutch babies. Oh, look at that. See, they change really quick. So, oh, these are looking so incredibly delicious. I'm so excited. About 50 more seconds and we're going to take them out, I promise, so we can eat. How's everybody cooking along? As everybody's seeing their Dutch babies are all nice and puffed and golden and...
Yes.
Yes.
And then the question is, when do the bananas go in? So all these ingredients...
Yep. So all these ingredients are going to go in on top and then we get to eat. My favorite part. And I'm sure your favorite part too. 20 seconds. I think we can take them out. So I'm going to show you what mine look like. So hold on 1 second before you take yours out. Let me show you what mine look like. Oh my goodness. My goodness, my goodness, my goodness. Isn't that fabulous? I love making these. So if yours look something similar to this, they're ready. Look at these. Oh my. So, the very first thing, if you're making the savory version, you want to sprinkle in 1/4 cup of cheese onto each one. And the residual heat from the Dutch bebe will allow it to melt. If it doesn't melt, you can always pop it into the oven for another 30 seconds just to kind of help it along. Actually, you know what? Let's do that because... And actually, you can do the same thing with the bananas. So if you have the bananas, you can add the bananas on as well. Look at how delicious these are. Oh my goodness. And let's put them back into the oven for about 30 seconds. Let's get those bananas nice and warm too. There's nothing better than warm bananas and melty cheese. These are going to be so delicious. I'm so excited. So when you're serving these, you can serve them, of course, right in the gratin dish. And you want to place that gratin dish onto another plate because that's another heat-proof plate to protect your tabletop. But it's a really wonderful way of serving something that, like I said, is so versatile. Let's see if these are done. Yeah, see, it happens so quick. I mean, you just want them just to get a little bit more, help that cheese along just a little bit. Okay. So back out here. And now on the banana one, we're going to drizzle it with some maple syrup. Yum. And for the cheese ones, we're going to top each one with the delicious potatoes. I'm making a mess. You should try to do it a little bit more neatly than I am. And then the potato ones also get those gorgeous green onions or scallions. It's really just for a little color and a little oniony flavor. And et voila, that is pretty easy. So these are really hot. But I'm going to cut into them to show you exactly what they look like. So you can see the bottom. So the sides are nice and fluffy. But you'll notice that it has much more substance than if you've had just a regular Dutch baby. These have so much more substance to them. They're much more like hearty almost. I love this so much more than just something so thin. Let's take a little bite of this one. Oh, hot. It's so good. It's tender. It's hot. It's pillowy. It's It's everything you'd want on a Saturday night. So if you have some wine, I did not open wine, you guys. Ryan was like, I think you should wait until after we film. And I listened to him. I don't know that I'll listen to him again, but et voila. If you cooked along, your dinner is ready. If you did not cook along, head over to marcsievers.com, get all of the measurements you need. I'll have this recipe up by tomorrow. And I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your Saturday night. Thank you for joining me on Together Live for my Dutch Bebe cooking class. I hope you guys have a wonderful time eating. Happy Easter, and I'll see you on Instagram. Good night. All right. I'm going in for the sweet one too, because why not? And Ryan, you're going to have to come save this here. Oh, warm bananas, so delicious. Oh, warm bananas and maple syrup. Oh my God. Oh, so good. Good night.